So today we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. We're not going to be talking about what teams are fragging well, what teams are performing well, which teams are fraudulent, which teams should be winning more, which teams are just washed, nothing like that. We're going to transport ourselves back to the time of high school, that wonderful time for some of you, that not so great time for some other people. Considering we're mainly esports fans, I assume that for most of us, high school was not the greatest time, but anyhow, we're going to transport ourselves back to that time. We're going to see which teams were which kind of people in high school. So, starting off with something a bit vanilla, we can just put straight up Team Liquid in just the cool category. There's nothing very offensive about Team Liquid. They weren't very inflammatory people. In fact, they were just kind of the people that just sort of fit in and didn't stand out for much. If they were there, you wouldn't mind, but and maybe they'd be nice to talk to sometimes. But if you go to some sort of social event, they're not really going to stand out. You're not going to remember anything they did, to be honest. So I think they're just kind of a standard, just regular person. They're not standing out for much. They're not necessarily doing any inflammatory things. Then for a different team, uh, so I think Maus actually would also be in the same category, but they're different from Liquid. Maus are like those kids that came from public school that got really good grades, and so they got bumped up to a private school. Or better yet, they're probably just like those third graders that got really good grades because they're just geniuses or something, and they just got bumped up to fourth or fifth grade. And then they just ended up in like high school with you, even though they're 2 years younger and they're just like kind of upstarts still. But so I guess people kind of respect them for that, but at the same time, they're just kind of younger, so they can never really go into those higher categories. They're just always going to be the little younger kids that um, everyone likes to remind each other how tiny they are and things like that. I mean, no pun intended, but they are kind of like mice, right? So I mean, it's kind of like unfortunate for them that they have that branding. Then I think talking about one of the Giga Chad teams, we definitely got to talk about FaZe for sure. FaZe are like the kinds of guys, well, of course, they're the procrastinators. They just never showed up for class, or maybe they would show up just the bare minimum, and then they'd show up to the exam and they get an A, and then they'd be valedictorian and everything. And not only that, but these aren't even like the guys that are flirting with all the girls. They're actually also flirting with the teachers too. These guys like just exude that aura from them, and they're just like the guys that have this effortless charisma. They're not like super preppy or anything. They're not obnoxious in that way. They're just like working class guys. They show up, get it done, and not only that, but they just have like all the charisma. Like Rain is like the classic Giga Chad guy, like for sure that he was like definitely having sex before everyone else. No doubt about that one. And then Kerrigan seems like a bit nerdy, but he's just like got like that charisma to him where you don't even care that he's nerdy, right? Like he just goes around with everyone. And then not only that, but Rops is like shows up with a Porsche one day. Like, yeah, these guys are the Giga Chads for sure. And then also, I think we should put G2 in the Giga Chad group as well. But where they lack in charisma and intelligence, they make up for with money, basically. So, like, if you take the example of Snacks, like, Snacks is not a guy that should be a Giga Chad, but, like, just with the veneer, the rich veneer of G2, that just compensates for him enough. And the same with Mondesi. Like, I mean, it sounds like money, really, his name. He's like the type of kid to show up in a classroom and just be wearing like a fucking Gucci backpack or something, some really expensive clothing. So you're not even paying attention to what the teacher's saying anymore. Everyone's just talking about the fucking $1 million jacket he's got on or something. So yeah, G2 just make up for with money where they lack in charisma and intelligence, to be honest. And they also get away with like not getting so good grades because they can just pay to get into the best schools and things like that. So yeah, G2's in the Giga Chad group for that. And not only that, but it's like having money compensates for them because they can just invite people to their mansions and shit and host like the best parties because they just got money. So that's where they would be at for sure. That's the vibe that they're giving off. And then going for a bit of a weird one, I would say Cloud9, they're lacking a bit of an identity. They're like a North American organization, so maybe they have like North American parents, but they're also Russian. They're mainly Russian, and they have an Israeli on their team. So there's clearly some like postmodern, third culture kid shit going on here. And Cloud9 just lacking a bit of an identity, So I think they're classic art school type guys. Like you can imagine a guy like enters in art school for sure. Like in the art class, and he's drawing some weird postmodern shaped thing, like something that looks like a dick, but he says it's about, I don't know, like the conflict in Israel or something. So, yeah, I would definitely put them in there because like they're clearly lacking in identity. With all their mix, it's just a weird mix. Like an Israeli and four Russians doesn't really make much sense. And not only that, like bought by a North American organization, it's a bit weird. So then moving on, we got to go on to the flip side of this conversation. No pun intended. But flip side tactics have definitely got to be in the incel category, and the whole reason that they're here because these guys are like the quintessential incels of Counter Strike. These guys were like playing a meta that was so cancer to watch. It was VP before VP, and even worse. They didn't even have any good players. Their best player was World Edit, and World Edit it just sounds like a Minecraft name or something. It's terrible. And the way they'd play so slowly. The rounds would always go like down to 10 seconds. They would always like win against a good team to knock them out of a major. Really sucks. And so they're just like the incel team. Like you can also see just the sweat pouring off of them while they're playing. It's terrible. You can almost feel the stench. And the only thing they have going for them is that Doja's not on their team. So that's the only thing they have going for them, to be honest. Like otherwise, like these guys, you want to stay away from these guys. You don't know what could be going on within their group. They're just like in the corner playing some weird, Japanese video games. You don't even know what they are. So just stay away from these guys for sure. Then talking about maybe about VP. I am tempted to put them in the incel category because just of how cancerous their gameplay is. But I think they get saved by the fact that they won the major. Like Jane was valedictorian, so that's why they get saved. And not only that, but in like he just has a weird aura around him where people seem to respect him for some reason. Like even in Rio, they were just like pretending this guy was Jesus, even though they should be in the incel category by the way they play. Like just looking at them just looks wrong, while they're playing. It looks like they're just sweating too hard. They should be having a bit more fun. It's a video game at the end of the day. But like no, so we're just gonna put them in the version category just because Jane saves a little bit of their aura. Then I think we should put Navi in the Chad category, to be honest, because Navi they don't have like the effortless charisma. I think they've got a bit of a weird mix of people. On one hand, they got Blade and Alexi. They seem like super mega geniuses. These guys are like getting A's and everything, but they're a bit like weird as well. Like Blade was on flip side, so he definitely improved by getting on Navi. Navi just has like a bit of a weird spectrum on their team. They have like the meathead guy with like the CR7 posters in his locker doing Sue all the time, and JL. And then they've got Alexi B and Blade on their team. So they're just a bit of a weird, but they're coming together. They're starting to win now. They're starting to get a bit of an aura. They're starting to gain the respect of the people. They're just not at this level where they have like the effortless charisma or the fuck ton of money that FaZe and G2 have. So like even G2 with the fact that they lost a lot of aura with the fact that like the bomb plant shit where they forgot to defuse and then having snacks on their team, it doesn't matter. They can compensate with money. Navi's not at that same status yet, but they're rising up the ranks. And they are a legendary organization as well, who had Simple, but Simple at the same time was a bit of a unpopular guy sometimes. He could definitely ruffle some feathers. Um, and then another team we should talk about is definitely Heroic, and Heroic are kind of like the outcasts of high school for sure. Like in high school, these were the guys that were just like hanging around all the time with like their chest puffed up, and they were walking around like they meant something. But in reality, like nobody actually really liked them, and specifically like the Cadian and Stown and Yabi lineup with Shush and Tessus as well. And you could always tell like these guys were a bit obnoxious, but nobody really wanted to tell them. Nobody wanted to do that. They would just could be around. But the thing is, like, Cadian definitely gives off like the vibe of the guy who like in PE or in training, just like he scores like a normal goal or something in football training, and he just like starts popping off, taking his shirt off. And on the flip side, he also like gets really pissed off and frustrated over like very petty things. So yeah, these guys have got to be in this category. I guess I would put them above VP, at least they can just be around and at least interact with people. So we're gonna put them there. And then for Gambit, these guys, I mean, they've got Zeus, who's got, we're talking about like the major winning Gambit, not the Nafany one. The major winning Gambit had Zeus, who kind of has like this biker thing going on, with his tats and the fact that he's like a huge burly dude. Um, but the fact that they have Doja, I think, means that they have to be in the incel category. I think Doja just creates like a radius of avoidance, just like his whole entire atmosphere. There's something wrong about it. Um, so you definitely don't want to be at a social event with Doja. If Doja's there, you're staying away. So I think that immediately puts all of Gambit in incel category, unfortunately for them. Also, like the X God stuff, I think made it even worse because then it added like, is this guy also like freaking like a creep or something in addition to just being a weird grunting dude that's sweating all the time? Like that's not good for you. Like the X God thing did not help Gambit's case in high school for sure. That in fact that probably was the end of their high school popularity campaign, I have to say. Then Vitality, I think they're in between like these two. They've got to be somewhere in between there. Like Z was just like the cute, quiet kid that no one's like talking shit about. Like he's just too nice. So I guess like he wouldn't be in the Chad category. He'd just be more there. But the fact that they've got like some more charismatic players on their team and they win a lot, like they probably get like really good grades and they do seem kind of rich, with their apparel and all that. They're kind of like G2 with their press releases, like in Paris with Jax wearing a beret. That just gives off similar a vibe to Vitality, like their Parisian aesthetic. So I think they would be more or less there. Yeah, plus Apex seems like he was a pretty cool guy. So we'll give them that. So just as a recap, on one hand we have like the Giga Chads of FaZe. They're just like the working class guys that show up, they get the job done. They're procrastinators, but everyone likes them. They've got the effortless side to them. They don't even have to try, and they're better than you at the exam. And not only that, they're like flirting with the teachers. Then G2, they're not as charismatic as FaZe, but they make up with money. Then Navi's rising up the ranks. Vitality's got a bit of a mix of shy and charismatic players. Liquid and Mouse are just there. Cloud9 has no idea what the fuck is going on in their life, so they're in art school right now. Hopefully they'll figure it out in the future. Heroic, they're just like the guys that nobody liked, but nobody wanted to tell them. They're just the guys with their chests puffed out the whole time for no reason. And then the Virtus Pro, almost incel category, only saved by Jame. Flip side, the absolute hugest incels in Counter Strike history. I honestly, I would prefer if they didn't, if like they had never existed. If it wasn't for Blade and Electronic, but yeah, they were just horrible to be honest. And then Gambit, they have Doja, so they're incels. And that's the end of this tier list. I'm pretty happy with how it turned out. Let me know if there's any team I should have added here that I didn't add. See ya.